start with the roll call.
Ambrose? Kale?
Here.
Raymond?
I'm late.
Rochester? Here. Nelson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to do unfortunate.
Thank you all for being here today. As we use the microphones today, I may remind you to hold it really close like this so that we can pick it up on the audio worker. Thank you. This is our first budget workshop for this year, and I know the other council members, Ambrose and Brandon, are on their way. They'll be here shortly. So I wanted to go over first what we'll talk about and the structure of the workshop. So I'll start off with a little bit of context, and then I'm going to turn it over to, before that, we'll do a poll. We have a poll set up, so we'll have a projector. After the poll, I'll turn the time over to Finance Director Anna Nicholas, after which I'll say a few more words, and then we'll have an open discussion and receive your ideas and insights. And so let me just begin with that. So the budget process for this year is as follows. Today is the first budget workshop, and it's February 21st. We have our second budget workshop on March 28th. This first one is really to listen and to also learn about the overall structure of the budget, which our finance director will help us with. And the second workshop is to come back with responses and ideas, again, to kind of form up those ideas as we work towards the draft budget, which will be towards the end of May, as we usually do every year. And we have, in June, the City Council will review the final draft and adopt the budget. So that's the schedule of the budget this year. And the budget's important because it's about what we're going to be planning on spending money and where our revenues are coming from for the upcoming year, starting in beginning of July. We have a fiscal year July through June, and so let's go forward with the poll now. So if you get out your phone, there will be. I just have a few questions here. So go ahead.
I have a question. I hope your department heads present today. Are all of your department heads present today? Who are they?
Sure, I can do introductions. So we have Justin Benson, our Public Works Director. Jana Sousa is our HR Director. Anna Nicholas is our Finance Director. And Chief McKeeshan is our Police Chief. We also have Battalion Chief Robert Carvalho. Okay, so thank you for that question. So the first would be to, there's a QR code over here on the right side. So if you get your phone out, then we'll do this kind of live here. You use your phone to scan. We'll leave this image up on the screen for a minute or so everyone has a chance. We wanted to try something new, so this is it. Raise your hand if you need more time. Okay. So, where the question is, what topic do you want to learn more about? And I'm seeing how to decrease the deficit, inclusive, accessible parks and play spaces, how the city is going to achieve a balanced budget, and where do the funds come from in order to make the budget? These are great. Thank you. Great questions. So we'll move on to the next one. Oh, hold on. So we got one more. How our budgets are being spent specifically as it relates to salaries, roads, parks, and police. Anybody need more time for this? Next is, which service area should be a top priority? And appreciate the participation. Universal play, I think maybe universal playgrounds, right? Economic growth, safety, homeless. Welcome. We also have infrastructure, safety again, economic growth. So I'm seeing a trend. We have, safety, homeless, economic growth, infrastructure, universal play. Thank you for that. And we'll go to the last question here for our poll. How confident are you in understanding the city budget? We can do it on a scale of 1 to 10, or you can just kind of describe if you like. Okay, we have a few answers. They're kind of middle of the road. There's a very confident one there. I've not spent enough time looking at it to know. It's good that we're here, so we can learn more about it. Okay, I think that's it. So thank you for participating in the poll. I'll turn the time to Anna Nicholas, our finance director.
Test. Okay, we're here. Thank you, Chris. I like that last question, and I like the answer of so-so, because I think I would gather that's where most of us are going to answer so-so. And the reason is city budgets, even though we have our basics and the things that are with us year to year, we never know what comes up year to year. And so even if we think we're truly confident, we don't know what learning experience we're going to have each year. Each year we learn more and more. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday, 21st of February. I have some notes that I'm going to go over in order to move us forward in the discussion about budget. I'm going to spend the next 5 to 7 minutes sharing some basics of municipal budgets, the purpose they serve, and some challenges and strengths that we encounter in the process. And to get us warmed up, I have a very simple trivia question for this group. And I picked an easy one specifically because it's Saturday morning. So, what year was Atwater incorporated? Very good. All right, thank you. That means we are in our 104th year of the municipal budget process. And when I was thinking about that, that's pretty astounding that we are part of the 104th year of the municipal budget process. So, what makes municipal budgeting so intriguing? And that answer is going to vary from person to person because it means different things from person to person. But one of the things that I've learned in my local government career is it's so intriguing because we're dealing with local government, which is the most close to people. It's things that impact people's daily lives. However, unlike state and federal budgets, our budgets are very small. But yet we're dealing with things that impact people's daily lives. And so that in itself is very intriguing. There's a quote out there that it's to the effect that empty pockets don't hold you back. It's empty hearts and empty minds that hold you back. And that's so true for local budgets. We have small dollars, but it's the community spirit that can keep things operating and keep things going. So with that, I'm going to move forward and again just share some of the items that I mentioned before. So budgets serve two primary purposes for cities. They are a spending plan for the upcoming fiscal year, and as Chris mentioned, we run on a fiscal year that starts July 1 through June 30th. And they're also a communication tool that conveys the spending priorities for the agency. And so oftentimes with the operating resources that are needed to run the city for the year, you'll also see some intertwining of the city's adopted strategic plan. Unlike long-range capital plans or multi-year forecasts, budgets are focused on the short term. They're focused on short-term resources that are estimated to be available in the next year, and how can services be provided with those estimated short-term resources. In government, we use a accounting structure called fund accounting, and there are several, there's about 11 different types of fund accounting, funds in 3 main categories, but for the purpose of budgeting in Atwater, we focus on governmental funds, which includes our general funds, special revenue funds, debt service funds, and capital projects. And then we focus on proprietary funds, which are our enterprise funds, so water, sewer, sanitation, and that also includes our internal service funds, so things like information technology and building and equipment maintenance. So some of the primary areas where we get our revenues from are property tax and sales tax. That's going to be your largest sources of general fund revenue, which is what council has the most discretion over. When they make decisions on allocation of resources, property tax and general tax, they're not considered special revenue. They have more discretion over the use of that. In Atwater, we also have a cannabis tax, which has been set up to be put into the general fund, so they have discretion over that as well. And then we have user fees, which are specific to what they're paying for. So, you could have user fees for permits, you could have user fees for your water and sewer. And then sometimes cities have grant revenues that are coming in. So those are some of the primary sources of revenue that when we're looking at building a budget, we estimate what are we going to be getting for those sources of revenue. And then some of the primary expenses for the city of Atwater, we have parks, recreation, public facilities, public safety, public works, roads, sewer, water, general government administration, community development and land use regulation, and code enforcement, to name some of the main components of our expense allocations. When we start the budget process each fiscal year, we start by addressing what are our knowns. And so typically what we do is we'll look at the current operating expenses and revenues, and then each department head will look at what they estimate for the upcoming fiscal year. And that could be reviewing contracts that they have, it could be reviewing maybe if they know that there's a certain activity that's going to happen within that department that year, and they'll estimate the expense. And so they'll use the existing year as their base and project out for the next fiscal year what is the reasonable estimate of what the expense will be. This past year, we've performed well at maintaining living within our means of our prescribed budget. We have benefited from favorable interest earnings, and we have a balanced budget at this particular point in time that is practical and sustainable for the current fiscal year. But we know there are challenges that come. There's external costing pressures that are continuing to plague us. We know that the cost of business goes up and across the board due to increase in supply and labor with businesses that we do work with. We consider those needs as well when we put together the budget. So if we know of any inflationary impacts that might hit the departments, those are factored in. Any utility cost increases, those are factored in. And then we balance all of that against the anticipated revenue growth. So some of the considerations, the knowns that we take in are any contractual agreements. For instance, if there's any labor groups that have contractual agreements with a cost of living adjustment. If there's, for example, we know our CAL FIRE contract is up for renewal. That will inevitably come with an increase. So we factor all of that into our expense allocations. We know that there's also continued pressures on our general fund that, unfortunately, cities being kind of down at the end of the line, a lot of times unfunded mandates get kicked down to us that that put a lot of pressure on our general fund, such as stormwater management, such as SB 707, which is the technology mandate that's going to be hitting us in July. That's going to make us have to put more resources towards technology, possibly staff to run the technology. So those are those unfunded mandates that we get to deal with when putting together our budgets. We know that typically each year there are cost increases associated with our risk management association, and there's usually cost increases associated with pension. So those are all factored in. With investment earnings, we will typically always be very cautious about how we budget for investment earnings, and we'll make mid-year adjustments as needed, as we did in the current fiscal year of 25-26. The reason being, those are they're very sensitive and subject to external factors that are outside of our control. So again, some of the challenges: risk management cost increases, pension costs. We do have retiree health care benefits that we're paying for. There's no new and large revenue sources coming online this budget year, so it's important we make efficient use of our current revenue sources and the estimates that we anticipate that we could get in increases in those. Unlike state and federal governments, we don't have economists on staff, and we don't have the ability to play the shell game and move money around. So, but we do follow the headlines when we're putting together budgets. We do follow headlines that are more applicable to our local region. We know that there's been layoffs in the state. We know that there's been plant closures. And we consider that. We consider that when it comes to our residents and disposable income, and how could that potentially affect the impact on sales tax revenue. We know that companies that we do business with have increasing pressures on their costs that are inevitably going to get passed on to us. And then some of the strengths that we look at when we're putting together a budget, we know there's a lot of challenges that face local governments, but some of the strengths that we look forward to hoping will continue through the fiscal year is our businesses thriving. And so when you hear cities talk about shop local, that means a lot. When I hear about somebody living in Merced but coming because they prefer to shop at Applegate, they want to go to the Walmart and Target here, that's exciting. So that does mean a lot, because that comes directly back to the city as sales tax revenue. So we hope that our businesses are going to thrive. We want to keep our sales tax booming. We look at decent investment earnings, and we hope that will continue with us for the fiscal year. We want our housing market to stay stable. So while the states and feds, I think they have more tools in their tool belt, they have more people, on their staff. These local governments are the ones that are providing the service that's most critical and essential to the community. So it's an arduous but a rewarding task of putting together a budget, and that's where it's good for us to hear from the community. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to open up the questions, I believe. Is that what we're...
Yep, that's where we're at.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. That was awesome. Great overview. Sure, and if you scribe for us, we have markers here in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're opening it up now to anyone that wants to speak. I will bring the microphone around to you so that we get the audio on this stream, and feel free to just raise your hand and I'll come over to you. You can speak as many times as you like. There's no time limit, although if you could be considerate to everyone else in the room so we all have a chance to speak, that'd be great. And yeah, I just want to hear from you if you have any questions or thoughts or comments or suggestions for the budget. So who wants to kick us off? All right, I'm coming back here.
One of my questions concerned the budget, just kind of pulling off of what you just finished speaking about with Walmart and Target and the sales tax there. I know that we're splitting sales tax with the county. Do split is on that? And then did we give them any, like tax breaks to come here and have those since like expired or whatnot? And then just, I guess, long-term budget planning, right? Are we currently in negotiations with the county as the land that Atwater is interested in, specifically around the Atwater-Merced Expressway? Are those deals being inked and discussed currently?
Thank you, good question. I know that we have multiple tax rate areas in the city, depending on when annexations happened and when agreements were put into place. The one I'm most familiar with is not that one. So I'll need to come back, and this may be a recurring theme. I don't have all the answers right off the top of my head, but we're certainly happy to research, and we'll bring this back at the next budget workshop. So we'll look into that. Sean, thank you for that question. I can answer a little bit more if anyone has questions about the Ferrari Branch related property tax sharing agreement with the county. But that was really good. I think there were a couple other questions in there.
I can answer the one about the current sales tax. So currently, the Bradley Burns, where'd you go?
Oh, he left.
Oh, okay.
It's still worth answering.
Okay. Currently, so cities get 1% Bradley Burns. So Bradley Burns is the sales tax for the state of California. The cities get 1% of that. There is an agreement in Merced County where Atwater's 1%, Merced County gets 5%. And it equates to a little north of about $200,000 a year. So that's the current agreement, just specific to the 1% Bradley Burns.
Yeah, the interesting thing about property tax sharing agreements with the county is the county has a lot of leverage. They control whether or not we annex in many ways, and they can be a huge obstacle for us for any future annexations. So having an agreement in place allows us to work together with the county to do annexations, such as Ferrari Ranch. But with that comes a negotiation of how do we split the property tax for the increment or the difference. I'll just back up a second. So before it's annexed, it's farmland usually, and the property tax goes to the county. Once it's annexed and you build something on there, the difference between, let's just say, the store property tax versus what it used to be as a farm, the property tax, that's the increment. And that increment is divided between the county and the city in a negotiated fashion. And if you look at other counties in the Central Valley, there's a wide range of percentages that you see. For example, in Stanislaus County, they split it 50-50, which might seem like, why is the county getting all that? Well, they have a lot of services that they have to provide, and that's what they've negotiated with the cities. In our city and other cities in Merced County, it's not quite that good. Actually, it's closer to 3/4 and 1/4. So yeah, that is something that's important to us to look into and to talk with the county. It is tricky though, because they do have a lot of the leverage as far as allowing us to do future annexations. Thank you for raising that point. That's good. Yes.
Speaking of expenses and income, and I've gone to the council for many, many years, reminding them that we have an agreement with the county of Merced regarding our sewer services at Castle. You know, we're getting hardly anything, and it's costing us a heck of a lot of money. Actually, for our folks to get out there and repair things. Nobody seems to want to jump on it and do something. Your last community development director said, oh, he had it under control, and he was going to give them until next month, otherwise cut it off. Well, that must have been a lie, because they still have services. I think it's time that the city fathers, and I know Ms. Rochester has brought it up to your attention, to do something. We're tired of paying for services at Castle, and when the county needs to kick in some money. You know, so I think maybe you might want to put that in your budget.
Yeah, thank you for that. We recently, in the last 6 months-ish, we had an outside consultant help us figure the estimated amount that the county should be paying us before we get into, let me back up. So in order for us to have an accurate amount that they should be paying us, we need to meter it. We have to measure the amount of sewage that comes in so that we can say, this is how much it is, this is how much you need to pay us, because that's how it is for everyone else. We're working on a project that's getting close to finished. It's the Castle Sewer Interceptor, and most of it's in, and I think we're waiting on a pump. Is that right, Justin? So that pump is scheduled to arrive, I think, in April. Once that's in, then I think it's basically complete. Before, there were some issues with metering because sometimes the flow would come backwards, and that gives a negative reading, and so that's not helpful for us. And so in the meantime, about 6 months ago, give or take, we had a consultant help us determine kind of an estimated amount that the county should be paying us in the interim, and we started sending them that increased amount when we send them the bill for the utility. So that's kind of a stopgap, but we are working towards that. Once we get that pump in, it'll make it easier. Thank you for that question.
What's that amount? Can you share what that amount is?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's around 7,000 a month.
Around 7,000 a month.
That's not acceptable.
It's a estimated 40,000 gallons per day that we use. Yeah. That's it.
Estimated 40,000 gallons a day, and before the amount that they were being charged,
1,000.
about 1,700, something like that. So it's increased based on that estimate that we got from our consultant. Let me bring the mic back to you.
I know that we sent them a bill, but has the county actually started paying that increase, or are they still just paying the original $1,000 and some dollars?
So I could look into that and give that information to Chris. I don't have, of course, the system with us today, but we could definitely follow up on your question.
Yeah, happy to follow up. Thank you for that.
Does that include the prison?
No.
What's the prison?
Just so that we get on the mic, I'm going to ask your question again. If you want to bring the mic here.
What about the prison? How much are they putting in?
Yeah, the prison is separate, and they.
Well, my question, my concern is, we're trying to find a rate to charge Castle to come to our treatment plant, but yet we've had the prison online for a long time, and it seems to me that it should be comparable to the prison in dollar amount. I mean, we seem to be satisfied with the prison and how much they're paying, so shouldn't that kind of be a foundation for Castle?
So could you talk, Justin, for a minute about where things flow and everything? And there you go.
The prison will be a little bit more because it's 2 pump stations they have to pay for, where the county just 1. Because it goes from a pump station at the prison into the Castle Sewer Interceptor as well. So the prison has to pay for both. And then the prison's about roughly 250,000 gallons per day. Per gallon, the county would be paying right now a little bit less than the prisons because they have less infrastructure per gallon.
Right. What if that just was predicated on
Like people that are, I mean, I'm looking at it from population standpoint. If you look at the prison, you've got, I think there's something like 1,700 total, okay? If you look at Castle, what's the population there? It should almost be the same. Now, I get what you're saying about the pumping business and all that, but I mean, as far as population is concerned, they should be comparable.
It's different uses, so it's different amounts of sewer that population puts in, and we charge per treatment per the gallon of our sewer water.
Thank you for the questions. Who's up next? Coming on over.
My name's Kathy Wood, and I'm a volunteer. I work at, or volunteer at what's now the police station, and I've been out there like 9 or 10 years. I started primarily with the Rose Garden, but I do a variety of things, and I'm out there 2 days a week for about 2 to 2.5 hours, so that's 4 to 5 hours a week. And my concern is that the police station is an unnamed property. I've talked with Chris about this. There's a very small sign in the window if you're all the way up to the building. But other than that, there's no signage that identifies that building. And since I'm out there and I'm just outside, I run into situations. Last Saturday, a couple came to the property, and I really didn't look at them or acknowledge them. They were doing what they were doing, but anyway, they were looking for the community center. I went over to them. They were coming to me, and I said, "Can I help you?" And she showed me a sign or a thing on her phone for an event at the community center. So I showed them where that was and how to get there and so forth. But had they seen that this was the police station, they would have known that their event was not there. Plus, well, there were no cars in the parking lot except mine. And another instance, I had somebody come by that was looking to pay their bill. Well, if the building had been designated as the police department, they would have known that that's not where they pay their bill. And the election, whatever it was, in October, they came out to pick up the ballot box, and there were 2 gentlemen there that picked it up. Big, and the younger guy didn't know what the building was. I mean, if he'd been there by himself, he wouldn't have known where to go because the building is not labeled, so to speak. So anyway, this is a problem, and I run into it because I'm out there, and I feel like it needs to have a name to it, and it needs to be big so that the people, when they drive in to the parking lot, know where they are, because at this point, they don't. And I see it as a priority for budgeting. I have no idea how much it costs, and I know you're talking about different parts of the budget and so forth, and I don't know how that works out, but I'm just saying, as someone who's there reasonably often, it is a problem.
Thank you. So just to clarify, you're talking about next to the street, a lit sign, kind of double-sided, that says police station or something to that effect, like Atwater Police Department, something like that. That's what you're...
Well, there's a big, the council chambers is on the inside, but on the outside, there's a very big wall. And I would say to put the sign there, but that just makes sense to me. But whatever the signage is, it needs to be readable from the parking lot, because it's quite a little jaunt from the parking lot to the building. And I was in Merced, and I looked at the Merced police department, and they called the Merced police station, which is right by basically by the sidewalk, so it's, you walk by, you know what it is. So it's a totally different situation, but people need to know what that building is. I also had somebody come by and wanted to pay their property taxes. So, I mean, I run into a lot of things, and a lot of them I pass on to Justin. But, I mean, inquiries and things, people don't know what the building is.
Chris, can I answer that?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. Chris and I have actually had those discussions when we walked the front, and you're right, because that building has been so many different things over the years, it is confusing to people. They still come in to pay their water bill, you have to explain to them that they gotta go downtown now. So we've talked about a few different things that I would like to do. One is a monument sign closer to the road, so the people driving by in both directions would see that's the police station. But I agree with you, I would also like to see it up on the building and lit up so that once people are in the parking lot, they do identify that as a police department. So thank you for pointing that out. We spent a lot of time recently on the reorganization of the building once finance moved out. We're done with that now, and so these are the kind of things that are on our radar now. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you, Kathy. Coming on over here.
So I heard that one of the things that brings in money is development and fees for land, right? So why aren't we letting developers develop land and bring in homes? And to bring in that money, we need that tax money. Why are we not letting that? That also affects our school districts around us and low enrollment, so because we don't have people moving in, so we don't have kids coming to schools, which also in turn affects their budget as well.
Thank you. Yes, that's all part of it. So we need houses, we need industry that bring in value-added jobs, and then we need commercial, which helps a lot with our tax base. And all three of those, industry, commercial, residential, are part of the mix that needs to happen. We have a community development director starting next week on Tuesday, and I'm really excited to have Johnny Hanson Land help us move forward with our planning and building work. She has a lot of experience with that. So yeah, I feel like we have a bright future in that regard. It has been challenging the last 12 months because we've had some vacancies, but we've built some of those, and we're looking forward now. So I appreciate the sentiment because it has felt like Atwater hasn't grown very much recently, and we do need to put that business-friendly approach so that we can bring in industry, commercial, residential, all of that. So thank you for sharing that.
When your community development director comes on board, will that move your building permits along a little bit faster? So that way we'll have happy people?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is we have Cloud Permit, which is a digital software that helps us with building permit processing. And we implemented it about a year ago, and we have had multiple trainings with staff recently that I think have brought them up to speed better. We were last summer kind of in a backlog, and that was identified by a previous director there. And it was helpful to see that and to work on it. So we brought in multiple people from a contracting company that helps with building permit processing, and we went from around 87 backlogged building permits, and the first day it went down considerably, about 30, because some of those were the easy ones like the water heaters and the HVAC or something like that. Some of the easier ones. But then we still had, around 50 that we had to work through. And so over the course of a couple months from about, I want to say September, October-ish, that time frame, is when we had that extra help. And that brought us back to kind of a normal amount of building permits in the queue where we're reviewing them. We route them to plan checkers, and they review them, they give them back. We share those details with the applicant, and we go through that process, and then we get it issued. They start construction, and we have outside contractors helping us we have agreements with to help us with the inspections as well, so that we're not dropping the ball. So I think over the last 6 months, we've made some good strides in that. There's always more work to be done, but I'm proud that staff has stepped up and also gone through some training for cloud permit to help us move faster on that.
I just want to bring up a real world consequence when we're not bringing in new homes is that I was contacted by a resident who has a son who went away to college. They've lived in Atwater their whole lives. He went away to college. He obtained his bachelor's degree and got his credentials to teach. He returns to Atwater, the place that he loves, and it's just completed. He's on the tail end of his first year at Bellevue Elementary, and he was called in and he was given notice that his contract won't be renewed because of low enrollment. And so I just want to remind everyone in the room that the school district bases their growth on population projections, and they're anticipating that the city is going to grow. And when the city doesn't grow and we don't have new families coming to our community, then what happens as an unintended consequence is that our enrollment in our schools are low. And so now we have 9 individuals in our city who have received this notice that their contract will not be renewed. And I see that as a failure on our part in not bringing in new residences, new homes, new neighborhoods. And so I just really want us to think about that and think about how we want people, educated people, to come back to Atwater to live and to work. But if we can't provide those jobs for them, then that's a real problem. And so it makes me very sad for this family that this young man decided to return to his hometown with his education and his credentials to teach, and now he may not be able to do that. And so I just want to bring that, to light.
Yeah, thank you for that. Those are the consequences of when things are slowed down like they are. Yeah.
It's for the chief. Are you at the staff now on patrol? And if you're not, are you planning on adding to your staff?
So the allotted number that we're allowed to have now, we have someone in the final stages of background that will make us fully staffed. But like I always say, the industry standard is to have 1 officer per 1,000 people. We have 32,000 people here, so we should technically have 32 officers, and we are authorized 26. So technically, we're fully staffed if this person comes through, but from a realistic standpoint, I don't know if we ever can be.
My other question is.
Oh, let's say actually there's my here.
My other question is, since you are almost fully staffed, when are you going to deploy the traffic enforcement unit?
So we had a traffic enforcement officer, and then he got promoted to the corporal.
Right.
We opened that back up. Only one officer put in for it, and then he wound up leaving to go. He actually left law enforcement, so he went to another field. So we're still working on that. The corporal who got promoted, he's still doing the traffic, kind of in a de facto situation, but he's doing both. So my goal, obviously, if we're able to add more officers, I would like to build the traffic unit out and have 2 or 3, because 1 is a benefit, and we've seen benefit from him being in that position, but 1 is never going to be enough. We average about 1 collision a day here, and so we definitely need a bigger traffic unit.
It's a very big problem in the city.
And the problem is when you have the number we have, you have to prioritize, and like we just brought our street crimes unit back because we're seeing an uptick in gang activity, and that's a priority we need to get on top of it before it gets out of control. So unfortunately, when you add to certain things, you have to subtract from others unless you have more bodies. So.
My other question is the animal control. Has that been filled, and are you planning on adding to that staff?
Yeah, so we have final secondary interviews coming up this week for that position, so we'll have somebody in that position probably within the next 2 weeks.
Are you planning on adding to that staff? Because animal control is a big problem in town.
It is, and right now, unfortunately, because we have nobody in animal control, the code enforcement officers have been doing the bulk of that, which unfortunately takes them away from what they need to do. So, yes, we have the full-time one that we're doing the secondary interviews on. We had 2 part-times. One actually starts this coming up week. The other one, he, at his request, it's a little bit delayed. He'll be starting next month. So we'll have 3 people in that division that right now is at 0. So yeah, we're definitely going to see a big increase there.
Thank you.
Let me go away. I have a question. So you're saying post requires 1 officer per 1,000?
They don't require it. That's just the industry standard.
Okay.
They can't require that unless they're going to
About
provide
every
the
city around here, except for Atwater, pretty much meets that suggestion. And I think that it's time that our city council and our city manager forget about giving some of these top dogs raises and put some money in the budget for the police department. So that way you can get your 31 officers, and that way they can see more activity on the street, because that's going to deter crime. We all know that. I'm singing to the choir. But I think it's time that we wake up, because when somebody walks into your home there, Mr. Councilman, and maybe possibly assaults your family and robs you, that's when you're going to pay attention and want to add some people. If you don't have the money, find the damn money. I know there's money there, but you're using it the wrong way. So I think you need to move money around, put it in public safety, police department, get some people on the streets, so that way all the bad guys are going to say, hey, God, there's cops here. Because they're coming from Merced, I'll tell you that. They're coming from Winton, and they come to Atwater. I was shopping and going kind of across the street at Target last Saturday, and there's a stop sign in both areas as you leave the store. This guy's on a green Honda dirt bike going back and forth, he didn't stop for something, he just having a good time, he's a kid. If there was an officer, and I know they don't have the guys to go out there and patrol everywhere, but just so happened if we were lucky enough to have an officer, he could have got him a little hot ticket, taking the bike away.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate that you mentioned that, there's money, we just need to figure out where to move it, right? So that's a good point, because we can't just add without taking away somewhere, because, well, we won't be balanced, right?
Measure B. B is in Bravo. B is in boy. That's where you use it. Don't take anything else out except for human beings. Officers is going to get on the streets and take care of business. I don't know if you watch the news, but that's all there is now. There's nothing but crime in the United States. And until we get a sufficient number of officers on our streets, you're going to see the crime rise. So I don't know if we have to draw pictures or what, but I could care less about some of this other crap. I want to see officers. Please, okay?
Thank you for that input. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
I got 3 questions. The first one being, how much money is set aside for maintenance and upkeep regarding the signage in town? The hanging signs that have the street names, a lot of those are unlit. Intersections like 5 Corners, you have that turning lane when you go from Bellevue to Shaver to Bellevue, anyways, it's a double turning lane and you can turn into one, but there's the markers that identify it are not there, and I've had a few occasions where people will actually hit you, and probably better signage as far as no right turns on red, because a lot of people do that. And I've seen an increase in a number of people running red lights, which it's not only just affecting Atwater, but everywhere else. Second question is, we looked at any studies or grants or anything to improve crossing over to the other side of the freeway to get to Applegate Shopping Center, make improvements there. And the third question, now that I'm metered on the water now, I've noticed I usually use about 3,000 to 5,000 gallons per month, but in the summer months when I'm watering my lawn, it's barely able to keep the grass green. So when we do our bills, is there any consideration for projection as far as annual usage instead of monthly usage? Because the months that I'm not using my 19,000 gallons, it could be allocated for my summer months. Those are my questions.
Okay, interesting thought. So starting with your first question about signage, road signage, and I think you also talked a little bit about striping in there. Was that kind of like seeing the road and everything? So on Monday, well, the last couple council meetings, we've been having a conversation about which roads and where can we allocate money to do some striping projects. Some of the roads have fairly new striping, but a lot of them do not. A lot of them need striping. And we identified several areas that need new striping and other areas that need not just striping, but overlay where we're grinding and we're repaving and then we're striping after that. And on Monday night, the council meeting, that'll be a topic for discussion to get authorization to go out for bid on those projects.
We have enough funds for that allocation to do those things.
So we do we're getting RSDP funds. It's the Regional Surface Transportation. Those funds we have, it's about $1.2 million. So we can do, a handful of different projects, different roads in different areas of the city, restriping in other areas for overlays and restriping. As far as the road signage, go ahead, Dustin.
And Five Corners was actually scheduled to be striped the intersection February 9th. The contractor had to push it back because of the weather. They're on the schedule for the 23rd. We'll see how the weather is to see if they can put down the thermal. Yeah. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so the second question was the Applegate overcrossing. We've had a few meetings with Caltrans and other communities, and Caltrans actually has some plans in the future to do a massive, and I'm taking, this is massive, it could be, well over $100 million to reconfigure that overcrossing, and they've shown us a few alternatives, but it's very early and they don't have the funding at all, so this is just kind of their engineers dreaming about something in the future, but at least they're planning on it, and I feel like that's encouraging. I don't know when it'll happen in the future, but some of the ideas they've shared with us include having a really tight diamond where if you imagine you're coming from Livingston and you're on 99 South and there's that exit that gets you over to the Panda Express McDonald's area. So instead of turning right there, it would kind of go uphill and it would meet at it would tee off into the bridge. And then you could go straight and then go back down on an on-ramp on the freeway. That would require a very tall retaining wall behind Boot Barn. That would be one. Another alternative is to have that bridge where you have the Applegate crossing continue at its high elevation and go all the way across Atwater Boulevard and the tracks before it comes back down to street level somewhere around Olive. That would also be a massive bridge. Then that means that the railroad tracks and Atwater Boulevard are go underneath the freeway. That would really reconfigure the downtown circulation because you wouldn't be able to easily go from Atwater Boulevard, across the freeway. You'd have to kind of come back through some of the city streets and blocks to get on the bridge. Really, it goes all the way over. And another option that they discussed is completely moving the freeway so it swings down behind the Walmart and the Target. And that would take out a lot of properties. There would be massive eminent domain on that one. So there's a few options there, and they all cost a wide range of money. But that is something that Caltrans has shown us and kind of talked about. I don't have a figure on when that would be. And then for your last question about water, we get, I think it was 19,000 gallons, right, Justin? Is it per month?
Yeah.
Here, let me get one. Go ahead.
Yeah, to do something like what he's bringing up, we'd have to probably do another rate study, or maybe you lower the baseline where you pay less, right? That month that you use 3,000 gallons, you don't pay the set fee, right? That's eventually what we're working towards, getting the data for the whole year of everybody metered, and then you can kind of go, okay, this is what they can set the cost at for 2,000 gallons or whatnot, and move it up through allocation.
Yeah, because kind of what would be nice is if we have rollover gallons, like rollover minutes. You don't use them all, you can use, but unfortunately with water, it doesn't work like that. But there might be a more reasonable price that.
Yeah, because in the summer months, it costs more to pump the water than it does in the winter months, PG&E or MID.
Going back to, you mentioned street name signs, and so that is something that, so a lot of these other things are bigger, more strategic initiatives, but street name signs, is there a current process if somebody sees one that needs to be replaced, they put in a.
Yeah, they call in, we'll put a work order in.
And so that is something that, within the oversight of a fiscal year budget, we want to hear, definitely.
Thank you for that, that was great.
That is something, the fiduciary oversight of the current fiscal year, that is something that the Public Works Director, it's helpful to know if those things are out there that need to be replaced, so we can account for that in the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, thank you, Anna and Justin. Over here, if you got one.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I'm representing Leo's Legacy. Our goal is to bring inclusive and accessible parks and playgrounds to our community. We are totally open to creating an MOU. We've been getting some grant funds. I would love to partner with the city, and so hopefully increase the funds that we already have that are coming in for this project.
So thank you for that. An inclusive, all ability playground could go into an existing park or new parkland. We do have some park impact fees that could be used in the new parkland scenario, and so that's an excellent idea, and I'm glad that you're raising it. And we've got it listed on our list here.
So Chris, when was the last time that we renegotiated our franchise fees that we charge?
Franchise for which thing?
In our budget, it says franchise fees, so I'm assuming like for PG&E or AT&T and so forth, in order to run, their pipes on the ground or their utility cables and so forth. How often do we renegotiate those deals?
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer right in front of me right now, but I can we'll write that down and I'll bring that information forward. I thought I saw another hand. Anyone just dying to ask us about something related to the budget that you'd love to bring to the group?
Chris, I got a long list.
Thank you.
Okay. The TCP money that we got from the lawsuit, part of it I know was, I believe, was punitive damage, and that money was invested in a money market account. Is that correct?
Do you have a mic, Anna? Go ahead.
The TCP proceeds from the lawsuit were put into an investment portfolio.
The entire amount, or just a portion from punitive?
I don't have that information.
Okay, well, Brian, you know this too. When we had that lawsuit going, it was emphatically told to us by Dwayne Brown, who was the attorney representing us at the time, that that money absolutely and positively couldn't be used for anything but the remediation of TCP. If there was some other amount of money by way of punitive damage or whatever, then it's used whatever you want it, But the lawsuit itself for the amount of money that we were suing for was only to be used for TCP. So it was my understanding once that lawsuit was settled that that money, or a portion of that, which was related to punitive damage, was supposed to go into an account. So my question is, how much interest have we generated from that account, and what is that being used for? Okay, I'm wanted to also bring up about CalPERS debt.
Before you move on,
Okay.
do you have kind of like a
Yeah,
broad overview of that?
Sure. So the proceeds from the lawsuit that many cities got for the TCP 123 lawsuits, the settlements go into their own fund. So in the city of Atwater, I believe it's 6,007 is the TCP 123. So anytime there's projects that have been done, which for the most part, the big projects have already been done for the remediation, it's paid out of that fund. The reason for putting it in an investment portfolio is because you have a large amount of cash. I think it was like around 30 million, that's a large amount of cash to sit idle in your checking account. So it's invested so that you can earn investment earnings on the balance, which are then used for future filter change-outs. But the balance is drawing down, and so it's not being used on anything other than TCP 123 activities, and I think it's 123 TCP, I keep flipping that. It's only being used on the purpose that it's there for, and the reason for putting it in an investment portfolio is because you have a large amount of cash that could be earning investment earnings, which it is, because we know our expenses are going to live well beyond that money that we received. So it's not much that we can get, but everything that we can get through the investment is going to help with those filter change-outs throughout the year.
Okay, so you're saying that the interest that's generated out of the investment money is thrown back into TCP
6,007.
remediation?
Correct.
It's not,
You can't use it for anything else.
right, okay.
Jim, we did a resolution at the time as well, to make sure that money goes back into it.
Yep, I remember. CalPERS, how much in debt are we to CalPERS?
Like, you're looking for a dollar amount, we can bring that back, absolutely. Anna, do you have like a broad overview of that too, please?
I can do a broader review. I'm not going to commit. I don't have numbers in front of me, so I'm not going to say numbers out that somebody sticks in their head and runs off with that. All of this information is also public. I encourage everybody to go onto the CalPERS website, and you can see the actuarial studies done for any agency that you want to look at, and it'll have the unfunded accrued liability in that. Typically, your public safety plans are going to be higher. Those are just more rich plans that are going to carry heavier weight. What we have started seeing as the workforce classic members retire and we have more PEPRA members, our UAL comes down. But the other thing that really plays into the unfunded accrued liability is the discount rate that is set by CalPERS, and that's basically their targeted interest earnings rate. So when interest earnings do really good, then our unfunded accrued liability goes down, and we can expect to see some of our payments go down. For example, fiscal year 25, CalPERS discount rate came in at 11.6, I believe, and they had set the target discount rate at 6.8. So basically what that means is anything over 6.8 is great. So you've got 4 point something there that was interest earnings above what CalPERS had thought. What they do then is they take that, they go back to all of the drawing board with everybody's UALs and set future year's payments based on that. So they'll take that into consideration. If it ever goes, so if they set that discount rate at 6.8 and interest earnings come in below that, we're going to have to expect to pay a little more. So that was just this past fiscal year. However, UALs are already set for our payments that we'll be paying for 26, 27. But what we do, one of the things that we watch is later this year, later in 26, CalPERS is going to release information, and we're going to be watching to see if our UAL for future years perhaps could come down, because when CalPERS achieves higher interest earnings than they anticipated, that helps to pay down some of that UAL for all the pools, for the pool statewide.
We had a question from a little while ago. No? Okay. You got one?
I do. I have a question about the carbon filters. And those are very costly. And I know that Anna said that we've been really drawing down the funds. So I'm wondering, because I've read about reverse osmosis, and that reverse osmosis is probably better than the GAC carbon filters, and I know that we're already with the carbon filters, but are we thinking about what we might be able to do to address that issue? Because what worries me is when those funds run out, because they will run out and we're burning through those filters pretty quickly.
Justin?
The capital it costs to do reverse osmosis on all of our well sites is gonna be more than we even have in the TCP fund. We have noticed the cost for change outs going down as more cities are needing GAC for PFAS as well as TCP. And I'm sure there's gonna be new contaminants that they're gonna come out with that are gonna require GAC removal. And hopefully, the more that it's needed, the more production it does, it keeps drawing the cost a little bit farther down.
And that includes also going over to Kettleman or wherever to get rid of those filters?
Well, are you talking about the carbon inside the filters?
Well, the filters themselves get tossed, right?
The filters stay there. We just change out the carbon, yeah.
Okay.
And what we can do as well is, they have a thing called reactive carbon, and it's basically they clean the carbon and then they can resell it to you for much cheaper, but it doesn't last as long. So we got that in some of the well sites to kind of run a study. Okay, how's this doing compared to the new carbon, and is it worth the money to do reactive or keep doing they call it virgin, correct?
Okay, so you don't need to take contamination and run it up to Kettleman or something?
No,
Okay.
no.
These are excellent questions, though. I'm learning a lot here. Thank you.
For Brian, you mentioned a resolution that was signed in this TCP, and are you aware that a city manager can come in after so many years on a resolution and not follow it? So what good are the resolutions?
Yeah, I didn't know that, but it's definitely accountability for us at least. I know one of the things we did was make it so it had to be a 4/5 vote to even do anything with the money outside of it, because I know we're trying to make it even criminal to spend that money on anything other than the TCP. So if nothing else, it's accountability.
But that was part of the lawsuit anyway. As Rainey explained to us, was that, Shell put out this money, and I think it was like 25 million or something like that, and you get caught using it for anything other than its intended purpose, they could come back at us hard and heavy. So, yeah, I understand that. Anyway, I understand what you're saying about the interest and all that sort of thing as it relates to CalPERS. I know that here back in 2018, when I booked out of City Hall, it was up to $7 million that we were obligated for. So that was basically my question is, what is our obligation in dollar amount? And I don't expect you're gonna know that off the top of your head, maybe you do, but.
It's a great question. I think I presented it at budget when I did budget last year, and we were about 78% funded, which is pretty good, but we can bring back the number this year as well.
Point of sale revenue, how many places, I know that NCI, which is now under another name, we were getting point of sale out of there. Do we get point of sale like out of Teasdale or any of these other places as far as revenue generation?
Do you understand point of sale, you mean outside of sales tax?
Right,
Or
yeah, well, when you go and you sell a product, but for example, like at NCI, they sell one of their buildings. They are Atwater would be the point of the sale, so we get revenue generated from that. So is that a line item that is put into the budget for point of sale?
No, that's not, yeah, it's, so if the company is selling their product, if that's what you're referring
Right.
to, the company, so any sales tax would be, the point of sale is inside the city limits, we get that. But then we also get a portion of the pool, the county pool, so.
Well, I'm just talking specifically to the company.
Mhm.
And it goes to someone that asked a question about economic development and all this kind of stuff. You know, the thing that just kind of grinds on me is we put up something like, you know, a fitness center or a coffee shop or a burger joint or something like that. And yeah, it generates some revenue, but nothing that's gonna get us to catch up and be a sustained source of revenue, in the way of jobs, in the way of, you know, sales tax revenue, things along those lines. It's not there. What we need to have, and I've said this before, is some marketing, promotional activity that will go out and try to get the big hitters. Unfortunately, our economic outlook in California sucks right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. And especially as it relates to fuel costs, we're looking at a massive bump in fuel costs here shortly, and that is a big deal in the bottom line of a lot of companies. So, you know, we need a manufacturing base. We don't have it. I know for a fact that Dole automated up there, and there was about 1,100 people lost jobs up there. And I know this because I know the people that put it in, and that's the figure they gave me. So, you know, we don't have those people spending money in downtown. If they hung around here, they probably moved on to other places to work. It's the same thing. You know, they make a big deal out of Castle about this TRC outfit running around the driverless clown cars out there and all this other stuff. And the fact of the matter is, none of those employees are local employees. They don't bring in their families. They don't bring in, you know, like Calissa alluded to, that their kids aren't in our schools and that kind of thing. They're not buying homes, durable goods, all those things that we could be selling. It's really a vicious circle here that we are not developing something of a major consequence here for development of jobs and sales tax revenue. We've got to get away from that and start focusing on the hardcore places, you know, something. You know, we missed opportunities for Amazon. Amazon built up in Turlock, and anybody that's seen that up there, that's a massive place up there. Why didn't we do that here? How did we miss that boat? How did the county miss that boat? Somebody's not looking at, you know, those things. I'm sorry, I'm dragging on here.
Fine, I just want to make sure I get my.
I'm loving this, Jim. You keep going.
Well, it's only because I've lived a nightmare. I've been on a lot of the intimate details of some of these things. You know, and I don't get it from hearsay. I get it straight from people that are involved with it. And the fact of the matter is that if we had been able to get something along the lines of an Amazon warehouse here, you're talking 1,300 jobs right off the bat. And then you're talking about, you know, other things that relate to it. You know, I conveyed to you that, you know, when I was mayor, we went after Bass Pro Shop, and they were ready to go. But their hierarchy, you know, shot it down. Same thing, and Brian, you may remember this, we went after, you know, another burger joint, but In-N-Out Burger. And what did In-N-Out Burger say? We don't have the population, we don't have the income level. There was a myriad of things that they shot down. They loved it here, but the people on top said no. And that's, I think, one of the things that is really working against us, that we don't have, you know, it's a workforce. You know, some of the workforce that we have here qualifies for certain things, other things don't get qualified. It's just an avalanche of different things.
So, in a lot of the, what you mentioned, we touched on and put into the strategic plan. So I think I want to throw out a concept, if you don't mind, if I
Yeah,
can
please
have
do,
a couple minutes of my time, because I heard Jim and Calista touch on something really important, because it all comes back full circle. But when we talk about the budget for the next fiscal year, that is our oversight. And then when we talk about the strategic plan, that's our insight. And then when we talk about those what-if scenarios, and Calista gave an example of maybe something we could have talked about 10 years ago, and that what-if scenario is now coming true, and that's generative governance. And so ideally, you want to do the first two things really well. You have your fiduciary oversight over your current allocation of resources. What is tangible? What is realistic that we can get accomplished with our estimated revenues this year? Great, got that. But we're also looking at our strategic plan, which typically is adopted as a 5-year plan, where this is where a lot of this we've got to keep alive in that strategic plan. Some of that overlaps into the budget. But then you're taking it to a whole new level, which is really exciting, because cities that are really functioning well do all three of these things well, and that's the generative governance, and that's your foresight, and you're planning for what could happen, and that's where you keep up with industry standards, you keep up with things that could, what is our major risk in Atwater, who are our major employers, what could happen to our community if one shuts down. And when you put all of that together, you're planning to weather the storm as best you can, while taking care of the current fiscal year obligations, and having that insight over the next 5 years. So it's exciting. Sorry, thank you. I just get excited.
I love what you said there, Anna.
Yeah. But really, so we're looking at the current fiscal year, the insight of the fiduciary oversight. But I think it's excellent that this foresight is being thought of. So.
And I agree. I'll turn it over to Myra in a moment, but I agree that we need a mix. We need houses, commercial, industrial. Some of the bigger whales, I'll call it. I mean, we can go fishing, but if we're going to get a whale, that is a game changer for us. So, yes.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask, so who in the city, and what does that look like, reaches out to different business companies? So just tagging to what Jim was saying, who does that and what does that look like? What has that looked like in the last couple of years? I was in Oakville earlier this week. Beautiful small town, 23,000 I think. And they've got a lot of business. They've got a lot of wonderful restaurants. We actually went to go and eat there, out there at House of Beef. Wonderful place. So I'm thinking 23,000, we've got about 10,000 more roughly, right, than they do. Why does it look so different? I know there's a lot of factors that influence, right, a city and what that looks like. But I think there's more we can do. So again, going back to my question, what has been done the last couple of years in conversations, or at least as long as you've been here? What does that look like? Who's reaching out, and what's that process look like to bring businesses in?
So at least when we're talking about commercial businesses, there are retail brokers that are the main point of contact for, they have relationships with different stores and different types of groups. So there might be one that represents, we already have a Walmart, but there's a person that represents Walmart. And so if we want a Walmart, we talk to that retail broker and we say, have you looked at Atwater? Can we show you some of our demographics? Can we show you what our market area looks like? And there are companies out there that contract with cities to do economic development work, and they have relationships with these retail brokers. They go to the conferences where they have booths, and we could do that. We don't have a focused economic development manager in the city. Some cities do. Some cities, they don't have that, and it falls back onto whoever can do it. I've done some of that work. Of course, I've got my hand in a lot of different pots here, so I'm pretty busy, but I love doing that kind of work. I think it's important because that's the investment into our future. How else we're going to grow if we don't start having those conversations? So I've done some of that. Personally, in past places I've been to, I've gone to a conference, they have it in Las Vegas of all places, but it's called the International Council for Shopping Centers, ICSC, and it's a huge conference with a lot of retail brokers. I've seen mixed results though. You can go there and you can, you're spending the money, you're investing the money for staff to go there. You really need to, I've seen wins and I've seen kind of like sales. So it's definitely an investment. We don't have an economic development manager position, so it kind of falls on myself, the community development department. But I would also say for anyone in this room, if you happen to know a real estate agent or a retail broker that's interested in expanding the stores or the businesses that they represent, put them in contact with me. This is a networking game of who knows who, and also what the demographics show. How many rooftops do we have? They're going to look at all this, and they look at cell phone data too. They track because people, they'll shop, they'll move around, and they'll share their data with Google or different companies, and then they aggregate that data and they can figure out, okay, this person probably lives in Merced, and it looks like they're traveling and they're shopping based on their geolocation. They're shopping at Walmart in Atwater. Okay, that shows that there's some leakage there, or it's good for us. But that's just they use that data, so that helps those retail brokers to make decisions on where stores need to go.
And I think the one thing that we can do in the meantime is continue to support our current businesses, because if any business is looking to come in, they want to see that there's already a thriving, healthy business community. And so making sure that we keep supporting the current businesses is so important, so that that foundation continues to grow and become solid.
There's also an organization, I don't think we have one in Merced County, but Stanislaus County area, they have an expanding organization called Opportunity Stanislaus. They provide cities this data. They help look out for businesses to come to the cities that they represent. So there's an opportunity for us to do a number of things. We could have an agreement in place with them, and they would do their data and analysis and bring back. They try to help us bring businesses and retain businesses. They also do a lot of workforce development. We have agricultural industry here. There's people that are welders, mechanics, and plumbers, and all these things. And they have a Volt Institute where it's in Modesto, and you can send. So the businesses actually. Opportunity Stanislaus is mainly, sorry, I feel like I'm doing a commercial here. They're mainly focused on like private, but they have government partners as well. But the private businesses have a lot of those types of workers that they need training. So they'll go to Volt Institute and they'll get trained for that. And that supports the business. It helps them thrive. They get education and training. And then there's other companies that represent whatever cities. There's the retail coach. There's, I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but they do this kind of work where they look out, they have conversations with retail brokers, and they say, what about Atwater? Come here, look at this. So we have some options. Did I see a hand over here? No?
What you brought up, Chris, about the Las Vegas thing, in my last city county dinner, my very good friend Michael Alta, who used to be the mayor of Los Banos, he had a conversation with me, and they had just returned from there. And when they came back with 5 new businesses. And he says, why aren't you guys going there? And I said, that's a good question. I don't have an answer. In any case, he said that the prime focus when you go to this conference in Vegas is that if you are sitting on a major highway, we've got 99 rolling through here. If you've got property, we've got open property over there. All of that right there is exactly what these big hitters are looking for. Lots of volume off of a freeway and all that. Los Banos only has Chaco Boulevard running through it, but it was good enough that they went and they landed 5 businesses over there. That's the kind of thing that when I say marketing and promotional plan, and everybody says this, I see it, and posted on social media and all this. where people are saying, how is it that Merced is getting another hotel and all this other stuff out there? How is it that Livingston does it? How is it that Bannis does it? How is it that, you know, we missed the AutoZone warehouse when we could have had that here? And it goes on. And I think that's kind of a valid argument. Why did they pass us up? We're just like an island in the middle that gets overlooked. There's something that we're not doing here. And whatever that something is, we need to figure that out. You know, because we're missing out. I look at Merced with everything there, and they got Campus Parkway. I get the UC and all that kind of stuff. When the UC was being built, and I'll never forget this, Rudy Trevino was mayor at the time, and we were shelling out $10,000 annually, along with a whole lot of other, you know, contributions, to bring attention to the UC, you know, to promote it and everything else, with the promise that we were going to get a residual out of that in the way of, you know, hotels and businesses and all this kind of stuff that UCs typically generate. Well, that may be the case in Merced, but we haven't gotten squat here in Atwater. We just haven't. And, you know, Rudy was very adamant about that, and I didn't pay that much attention to it at the time. But he was right. Why are we paying $10,000 a year to go for something that we aren't going to get any part of? And he was right about that. We haven't. And, you know, also, when it comes to businesses in particular, I know a lot of people think that restaurants are a great thing, and that's fine. But the reason we don't have a lot of these restaurants showing up here is because, for example, and I'll use Red Robin as an example, because years ago I would have loved to seen a Red Robin here. But there's one up in Turlock. And the fact of the matter is that people from here go to Turlock, and they go to the Red Robin up there. When you do that, and you pay with your ATM card or you pay with your credit card, you just put all your information into a database. So when you go after them, you say, hey, come to Atwater and put a Red Robin here. We could, you know, support it here and everything else. They're saying, oh, why? Why would we do that? We got you guys on the hook already coming to Turlock. And that's a valid point, and it's a fact. I was really upset. They're getting a Raising Cane in Merced. I got to tell you, that pissed me off, because when I was out at Castle, I had the guy who is the CEO of Raising Cane fly in. And I sat there in the lobby with him, and I said, man, we'd love to have you guys come open up in Atwater. And, you know, we got property, we got good, you know, traffic, you know, all that kind of stuff. And he was really happy about that. And he said, yeah, and the other good thing about it is, you're only 10 minutes up the road from Foster Farms. And I said, when can we sign you up? And he said, well, we're going through a whole lot of stuff right now and everything else. Well, they went and got one, what is it, up in Turlock or Ceres. They put one up over there, and now they're putting one up in Merced, and we missed another one. Yeah, it's like a swing and a miss every time, you know, we talk about, you know, development. So, you know, these are the things, you know, and maybe just as a suggestion here in Atwater, there's a lot of people that have been involved in business for a long time. Roger Wood is one guy that comes to mind. And put together some kind of a roundtable with business people around here and start throwing out, you know, ideas, start throwing out contacts, you know, start doing something where you would intermingle with those brains that have been in business for a number of years and figure it out. There's an answer out there. And, you know, what we're doing, you know, it's like they always say, you know, doing the same thing over and over, you know the story. It doesn't make sense that we're missing these boats.
Thank you. We got the business roundtable idea on there as well. Appreciate that.
For the past several council meetings, 2 people get up that want to do further businesses in Atwater. And I hear them say, it's been a year, we can't get permits, everything's a delay. And if I was to bring a business in here, one thing I would do is watch council meetings, and I would see this negative stuff that is being said, and said, why would I want to do a business here? Going back to Measure B, we vote for Measure B, and the city attorney tells Brian Raymond for personnel and equipment. And we don't increase our personnel. In the early 2000s, we had 33 police officers. Now we have 26. That should be a priority, is to build up the police department. When you talked about the Applegate overhead, how many times you see when there's an incident over at Walmart, every single police officer is over there. And I'm just waiting for when everybody's over there and the trains come by and somebody's robbing the bank over here and can't do nothing. And I feel that's a supervisory problem. There is just officers standing around instead of them being sent back to their beats. But that's stuff that should be looked at. If you want businesses to come in here, I would look at the police department. I would look at the city council meetings and see what people are saying, why it's so hard to make it, bring a business into this place. There was a mayor years ago named Joe Fontella. He talked about beautifying Atwater Boulevard, coming into the city, people driving into the city and looking at Atwater Boulevard. We need to build some kind of partition to block the railroad tracks and all that on the other side there. And then somebody decided to come in and tear everything up, and it looks like trash again. So that's something that could draw in businesses that are going to drive in here, and this is what they see. So I don't know what's priority, how many bills have to be paid, but these are things that should really be looked at.
So I'm hearing beautify Atwater Boulevard as to prepare the way for businesses to come in.
Well, when I'm taking off 99 going down Atwater Boulevard, and this is what I see of Atwater, I'm going to judge that all Atwater's like that. Okay, that's going to be my first one. So I would do something to fix up that area, so when somebody's driving by that you don't know that wants to build a business here, we want to give a good impression.
Thank you. That's excellent advice.
I do think there's a lot of truth to that.
I just want to share that I do think there's a lot of truth to that, and I've heard that being shared over and over and over, and that street looks awful, the scenery doesn't look any better, so, I'm not sure when we will see something happen, but I think it's been said, and so I just want to echo that. Again, just even this week going over, I thought, oh, it's so beautiful here, and maybe I didn't see all the parts of the town, but it is your first impression when you're getting off the 99 to visit, or you're driving through, so I think there's, again, a lot of truth to that. I hope we do see something come of this soon.
Thank you, Scott, for that.
Chris, large companies have individuals that survey us. They really don't even come into town. They have means of doing that. They have means of watching our council meetings. And they also have means of maybe taking a trip, driving down Atwater Boulevard, as Keith said. They also have means of talking to residents that live here that they know. And then they take it back to their CEO and just say, no. You know, I heard from an employee of Costco that they were interested in coming to Atwater and to enlarge, but they weren't impressed by the representatives of Atwater. And so I guess they're going to be enlarging in Merced again. So it just kind of hurts my feelings. That's why I think, and I apologize to the council if I made you mad when I said it's a do-nothing city, but that's what it is right now. And so I think that's what this meeting is right now, is to try to figure out how we can do something. If it takes volunteers to go play Oleanders and along Atwater Boulevard again, hey, I'm old, but I'll head it up. I've got some money I'll throw in, buy some whatever it's going to take in the city to make it beautiful. But we need to do something instead of sit around and talk about it. And I'm getting sick and tired of coming to your council meetings and talking about it. I would like to come up and say, my God, I'm so proud of you. You're doing wonderful. That way we beef up our PD. That's important because a business person comes into Atwater, they want their employees to be protected. And they're not going to do anything until they can see that we're up to our standards.
Thank you for that. Would anyone else like to speak? Thank you.
For me as a council member, when I'm looking at the budget, something that's important to me is that when I read the overview, and I know I've talked to you about this before, Chris, but when I read the overview and I look at the goals and objectives, those goals and objectives, a department head should review those annually, not just copy and paste it onto the next year, and really take a look at, were they able to achieve their goals and objectives based on the budget that they built the previous year? And if they weren't able to meet their goals and objectives, what do they need to do within their budget to move things around? But when I'm reading, that there's a goal or an objective to meet something, and then I see a complete reduction, or just a complete wipeout, a line item, taking the money away from that, and it doesn't match, then that doesn't make sense to me. And that was one of my biggest issues with the budget last year. So I hope that this year, when the department heads are building their budget, that they're taking time to really genuinely write the overview, review their objectives and goals, and make sure that their budget matches what they want to achieve.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, what I'm hearing is we should see what it looked like in the past based on the previous year's objectives and whether or not those objectives were met or not. And then if there's something that's changed, explain that change and why, right? And then moving forward, we know we could do this, this, and that. But this one, we're taking a strategic step back on because of whatever reason. That's
yes,
just a bit.
Yeah. I mean, one of the issues that I saw last year was in the recreation, the recreation overview. We wanted to provide, enhanced program and services to the community, but we completely wiped that out. And so that is problematic to me because program for youth and our elderly population is something that is also important to me, is that we're showing our young people that we're making that investment in them, because I think that's important for their foundation, that we as a community are showing them that they're valuable to us and we're making that investment in them. And also for our elderly population, that we are providing services and programs that will enhance their life. And so we can't say out of one side of our mouth that we want to improve these programs and services and provide all of these things, but then in our budget, cut it by half or 3/4 or even wipe it out. So those things need to match. So we can't say one thing but then cut the funding on the other.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. Here, I'll bring it over to you.
And connected to that, so I just have a few questions. So one would be, and you're probably looking at this, I presume, but which programs had the best return on investment last year? So looking at that, which I'm guessing you are doing that, I hope you're doing that. What programs consistently fail to meet their goals but keep getting funded as well? And then how do you evaluate whether a department's spending actually works?
Okay, yeah, those are good as well. So kind of some sort of measuring the success of a program or project or the outcomes, right?
One of the things that, to go to your point right there, we were promised millions of dollars coming out of marijuana. Remember that, Brian? And we had probably the marijuana industry's favorite attorney as our city attorney here that fed us that line of crap, and there ain't nothing comes out of it. There's nothing. You know, we've got, you know, it's smart business, is the thing that I always, have been a big fan of. All these things that we're talking about is fine and dandy, but, things like, we talk about, money for the striping and that type of stuff. And you were talking about the million something out of that one fund. Well, we've got SB1 and Measure D also, and also a certain portion of the gas tax. The money's there, guys. I don't know why we're even discussing it. The money is there. It's like the Measure B money for public safety. That Measure B money should be buying us an army of cops. That was the promise that was made to us, and it hasn't happened. And when you talk about your sworn officers or officers, being 26 or whatever, that number includes you and Lieutenant Nowitzki, correct? So if we're talking, you guys aren't on patrol, so you've got 24 cops then that are out on the streets. And then you divide those guys up into shifts, your numbers start falling down when it comes to actual officers on the street. And I brought this up at the oversight meeting once before, and I'm still a fan of it if we could do it. We've got money in that Measure B. If we stop squandering it on ridiculous things like flooring and weight equipment and painting doors and roofing and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with public safety, we could put cops out there on the street by way of offering an incentive plan by way of that Measure B money. And I also want, we want to include into that code enforcement. I thought that here, I don't know, a few months ago, we were talking in a council meeting about, more code enforcement officers and funding them out of Measure B, which I would wholly support. And then I don't know that it's happened, but the point is that we've got street vendors that shouldn't be out, on the street. We'd see them all over the place. And regardless what you think of them, that's a deterrent, just the same as all the trash that we see alongside the roads or anything else like what Keith was talking about on Atwater Boulevard. Measure B was there for specific reasons, and I just don't see it happening. And I think we've been taken for suckers here, the ones that, spent their time like Linda did with a committee to push it, and those people that voted for it. Measure B has been, abused like no other fund. And that's the thing that I'm afraid is going to continue with respect to that fund. We've got to get better, spending our money. That's all there is to it. My understanding is we still haven't cleared up the debt. Mike mentioned it at the council for the accomplishments of 2025. Well, we cut the debt in half or whatever, down to 400, 500 grand. Are we going to get better, doing what we're doing right now? I don't know. Only time will tell. But until we start bringing actual, businesses that have, some serious tax revenue and generate jobs and, can do something that will generate those jobs, spend the money, spend it on durable goods and all the other things that we need to do, then it is going to happen. You mentioned that the hotel, the Holiday Inn Express, you mentioned is possibly going to break ground this year in a conversation we had. We need more of those. TOT tax is one of the best taxes you can put into the city.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up TOT. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But the thing of it is, that's the kind of stuff we need to really talk about and make sure that we understand that, all these things, the feel-good stuff is what I call it, like a burger joint or, coffee, Dutch Bros or something like that. That's all well and good, but it's not going to pay the freight here. The residents are still going to have to go and do the heavy lifting and carry the water. That's bottom line.
Thank you, Jim.
Can you give an update on what's going on with the old creamery building?
Sure. It's been a while since I talked with the property owner. There used to be an issue where they needed to underground power lines, but that has been resolved. They don't need to do that. They showed us some plans, which looked really exciting. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to have happen because that would be a mixed use with like multi-story residential and restaurants, and then the creamery would become, I think some kind of brewery is what he was talking about.
Yeah, Corbin Cash. And if anybody's been out to Corbin Cash out in the county there, that place is packed all the time. Something nice to bring that revenue into the city.
Agreed.
Question, I noticed on the council agenda for this Monday, Chief's going to announce that he has a task force or something like that, the team that's ready to start working our streets. And I think that's something that's an accomplishment, because we haven't had crap except for patrol. So I think that's something we should be proud of and maybe introduce the officers so people will know these two guys. I think they were on Facebook, their pictures.
I love that picture, by the way.
Okay. These two officers, people will know that, they're there to do the job. So I don't know if that's planned or not to, introduce them, but that's an accomplishment because we haven't had anything. We have not had any special units in Atwater, which we definitely could use. So thank you very much. That's very appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And on another note with that, that's great that we have these two officers doing that. But then that takes away from traffic control and everything else. It goes right back to where we need to hire police officers. We need more officers on the street.
Well, thank you. I think we hear a clear message that public safety is of utmost importance. And I appreciate the other comments that we heard about playgrounds, parks, economic development. We heard about striping and the road signs, overpass. We heard about, we have a list. And so we wrote down a lot of notes, and we're happy to bring back the answers to some of the questions we didn't have the figures on today. We will do that, and we'll continue the conversation at our, you have another comment?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I work this in, because I know that we just acquired the land over at Osborne, right?
Yeah.
So I know you've reached out to have like workshops for input. And I'm hopeful that maybe you'll consider maybe another workshop so that we could come together. So for residents who might be interested in a dog park, we might be able to talk about that at that workshop.
The dog park was one of the highest.
Yeah, and the dog park was one of the highest requests for Osborne, so we've already started design.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a good chance.
You had a comment?
Yeah, I've been a resident here since '85, and the problem with Atwater is we need infrastructure. Now, we have the Merced bypass coming in or whatever, that'll be great. How good of a working relationship do we have with the county? Because the investment opportunities at Castle, I mean, you have a rail spur, you have one of the largest airports, I mean, running in the state. We need to improve our infrastructure, because when you're trying to get across the Applegate, I mean, even the people that work over there have to line up forever trying to get across. The other thing too, being involved with the youth sports, you know, we need to, Atwater's always been known as a bedroom community and a great place to raise your family, but we don't invest anything as far as space for our youth. I mean, you look at the space across from Buhack, that property right there would be great for having developed into a youth facility for baseball fields, soccer fields, and all that. Right now, we're draining the poor schools of their facilities, and they're inaccessible because they're all gated up now. But we don't put anything towards the future and wanting people to live here. You know, I mean, they're going to drive to Modesto or even the Bay Area to work. You know, but if you don't have a good place for raise a family and all the structure to go with it, that's why we're losing out.
Yeah, thank you for that comment.
One more time, if I might. This guy behind me here just tripped my trigger when it comes to Castle. People need to really take a look at Castle. You know, I've been here a long time, and when Castle lowered the flag for the last time, I was standing right there. And, you know, the community, especially Atwater, had high expectations for development out there. There was a lot of different things, a lot of different ideas. The Castle Joint Powers Authority was the biggest joke that has ever come to Merced County. But the fact of the matter is that those expectations were still running high, even at the bumbling of that JPA committee. And, you know, it really hit Atwater hard. I remember the average real estate value dropped 20%. And, you know, people were scared in this town. They were honestly scared. And, you know, it's always been in my mind anyway, and maybe in others, that Castle could be developed to a point to where we could get back to that Air Force days when we had a $250 million annual payroll that was being spent in Merced and Atwater. And there's property out there that is being abused. The biggest one that's abused out there is aviation, something that I know a little bit about out there. And let me tell you, you know, this business of having, Castle Airfest and Family Fun Day, a couple hours out on the ramp with a car show and, you know, that kind of stuff, a Luke Bryan concert and all that, that's not an airport anymore. And I can tell you right now, and this is no reflection on CAL FIRE, don't throw a dart at me or something here, but CAL FIRE is putting together a very large training facility out there, and it's growing, and that's a good thing. I have nothing against that. You know, you take advantage wherever you can. But the fact of the matter is that facility is going to take dormitories and some facilities that are currently being used by the flight school out there. The flight school got a 1-year extension on a lease here recently, but I think that 1 year is, you know, going to pass pretty quick, and CAL FIRE is going to have all the dormitories and the dining facility and all that kind of stuff. And what's going to happen after that is the control tower is going to go away. it's just sending out a bad message, period. So what you're saying about an airport, yeah, that's what, going back to Amazon. Amazon came to Castle. They wanted 19 acres, 19 lousy acres. And they could have done it out behind Big Creek. They could have done it. They wanted a warehouse, distribution center out there, and it didn't happen. Why? Somebody at the county dropped that big ball there. Because let's face it, like you were saying, there's a railroad spur, there's an airport or a runway out there. Runways don't bring in the business. It's the facilities around it. What you can provide for that. It didn't happen. We have missed more opportunities, and I don't understand why the county hasn't done some kind of coordination, and sit down and talk about marketing and how we can work together, between the city of Atwater and Castle, and bring it up to its full potential. Because what they have out there right now with the TRC, with that Patriot train, the welfare department out there, and all these are just reshuffling deck chairs, is all they've done out there. The only ones that benefit from TRC and the big whopping check that they write is the county. If they're not, like I say, they're not building houses for them, they're not bringing their kids here, they're not doing anything, because in large part, this is a lot of interns that are working out there. So we don't have the local hires and all that. I don't know anybody that says, yeah, I work out there at TRC. Nobody says that. And the Patriot train, shocking as this may be, Mark Hendrickson stood at a council meeting and made the announcement that that Patriot train generated a whopping 2 jobs. 2 jobs. And one of those jobs belongs to my next door neighbor. So
Okay, well, that's all well and good. That doesn't really have to do with city budget yet. We've given you ample time here today. So we're going to wrap up the meeting here. I do appreciate you bringing up the TOT. Chris and I have talked about this already, about the need to get that and to get it on the ballot before Holiday Inn Express actually opens. So if I could put you down as a first supporter on the list of supporters, that'd be great. And also regarding Costco did have, the city manager did have many discussions with Costco. So I don't know where he got your information from, but I know for a fact that he did talk to Costco. Employees don't, my wife always told me this about, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to everybody. As my wife always explained to me since she was in school administration, it's like an iceberg. People, all of us, we see the 10% of the iceberg that sticks above the water, but you don't see the 90% that's below the water. The public doesn't see that. So when you're using rumor to make decisions, that's not a good way of doing things. So, 11 o'clock, we're done. We're going to have the next one in a month.
Yes, so the next
And
budget workshop.
are we doing it here?
It may be here. We may move the location back to the chambers. We need to just check to see how well the audio, because we every time we're trying to make improvements on how we do the audio, so